myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and it's welcome for his debut to Ross Gregory, a long-term friend of mine, somebody who is a very established and well-known journalist in these parts, and somebody who is a big Newcastle fan. Morning, Ross. How are you?
Morning, Steve. Good to be here. Thanks for having us on. Finally, it's only taken us 24 years or something, isn't it?
Great to have you on, and obviously filling in for your good friend and my good friend Liam Kennedy, who's having a little bit of a sabbatical at the moment. Got a few things which he needs to sort out over the next couple of months. So thanks for jumping in and taking his place, and I know you've got his best wishes for doing that. So let's introduce you the audience first of all. How long have you supported Newcastle, mate?
So my dad, my granddad, both season ticket holders since the 50s, really, in the old East stand. So I suppose they got me into supporting Newcastle when I was probably about 5 or 6. So we're talking early 80s. My first game that I went to was when I was 7. It was in 1984. It was Kevin Keegan's testimonial against Liverpool, 2s each. A wide-eyed 7-year-old I was. I thought that every game ended with a helicopter on the pitch and players being whisked off. So that was a great first game. And then just obviously been a firm fan ever since. Through the tougher times of the kind of the Jim Smith and the Ozzy Ardiles eras into the Keegan era and on from there.
It's amazing. We've known each other this long, and I didn't realise that your first Newcastle game was the same as mine.
Is that right? Is it? There you go. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, different for me. I was taken by my granddad, who was referee assessing the game. So I was in the old West stand, and I had to dress up. I had to put smart trousers on. I had hair back in them days. I had to grease my hair over, and I was hobnobbing it with the likes of Jackie Milburn, Bobby Cowell, Joe Harvey in the director's box, and then I was sitting next to Peter Taylor, who was commentating on the game for radio on that day. So and then there was an accumulation of well-known faces sitting in the crowd as well. But for exactly the same reason, I fell in love with Newcastle. I'd been to Gateshead, I'd been to Darlington, I'd been to Hartlepool, I'd been to Middlesbrough with my granddad and watched many games with him as he assessed the referees. But this was his first fixture at Newcastle that he'd taken me to, and as you say, watching Kevin Keegan getting whisked off in a helicopter that day was something I'd never ever imagined I would see at a football ground, and hence the reason I fell in love with the black and white stripes at Newcastle. Just the roar of the crowd and everything. It just really grabs you, doesn't it, when you first go, Ross? Yeah,
it was an amazing game just to be that first one. Obviously there was a party atmosphere. It was a bit of a carnival atmosphere, if you like. It was a celebratory feel to the game. Very different to what you see on a kind of week-to-week basis, I suppose. I'd been to a few non-league games myself before then, and watched a lot on telly. The '82 World Cup, for example, it was kind of when I first started watching football. But being there in the ground and feeling the passion and seeing everybody, and kind of, like I say, that euphoric mood, and it was such an amazing event, that one, with, like I say, with the helicopter coming down and the laps of honour and everything else like that. It's very hard not to get bitten, get the bug bitten on a kind of an occasion like that.
So obviously you've ended up covering sport, covering Newcastle United, which is a dream job. I mean, I've been involved, of course, in fanzines and put my head above the parapet on TV and done radio and podcast now, which is something new for this era. But you went down a different path. You went on a professional path. Why did you choose that particular job, Ross, to get involved in?
I've always wanted to be a writer of some description. It was the thing that I was most passionate about when I was a kid, when I was at school, and obviously football. So played a bit, got to a half decent level, then realised I was never going to quite make the level that you wanted, that you aspire to when you got your schoolboy dreams. So the next best thing was writing about football, covering football, being a journalist. Never thought it's a very difficult industry to get into. So you never know what level you're going to get to. You never know what, if you're going to actually, be a news journalist or a football journalist or whatever. So I've been very lucky to have the some of the opportunities and travel around and watch certain games, cover your club, cover a club that's close to your heart as well. So that was kind of the reason for it. Got into it when I was 18, 19, and ever since I've been a sports journalist ever since.
Any particular game that stands out for you?
I don't know. There's a few. Sometimes as a journalist, sometimes it's the bad ones that kind of stand out for you, if you like, as much as the good ones. As a journalist, you don't go into the semi-final, the FA Cup semi-final against Man United when we got turned over down in Wales, down at Cardiff, 4-1, I think it was by the end. Was just a really dispiriting, disheartening day. But then, you have obviously some real highs covering the club as well. As a fan, I'll never forget the 3 Wembley or 4 Wembley visits in kind of 4 years, 96, 98, 99, and then the 2000 semi-final as well. Just great occasions when you're young and with your pals. And when at the time you think as a club, this club's going somewhere, we can have real success and real achievement, and it doesn't quite always stay like that, does it? It's ups and downs. So hopefully now with a new era and a kind of new ambition and new hope around the club, we can see some of them heady days again. Steve
H was expecting a Scotsman when he saw your name on the on the pre-publicity for the show, but no, he's a Geordie lad, Steve. Tom says, who was your favourite Newcastle player then?
When I was growing up, when I was really young, you kind of, the players I liked were, I was a forward player myself when I was a kid, so I liked attacking players. I liked people like Mirandinho obviously comes in and he's got that exotic feel to Brazilian. I like that sort of explosive, exciting players. When I was growing up, obviously the likes, I suppose Mickey Quinn as well. Just a pure goal scorer, somebody who would bang your goals in. Him, Darren Jackson. I always had a soft spot for Darren Jackson in the kind of late 80s, and Paul Goddard, going to seeing those two playing together. Those types of players when I was much younger, and then obviously as you work your way into your teens, and you've got people like David Kelly and Gavin Peacock. Again, those types of forward players. I've always got an affinity for those. Not necessarily, obviously, your Shearers and your Bearsies are the best I've ever seen in a black and white shirt. But I have that soft spot for players who when I was growing up weren't the superstars, if you like, weren't the massive names, but were 100%ers who still try to excite the fans and scored some really crucial goals for the club over periods of time.
Yeah, some great memories there. If you've got a question for Ross or for me, then don't forget, stick it down in the comments section and I'll get them up on the screen today. You mentioned the takeover, you mentioned the new era. 6 months on, I've done this with a lot of the regular guests on the show. What's your marks out of 10 for first of all, for the new owners, I guess?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, because we're 6 months on now from the takeover, and I suppose we've got to be really positive about everything that's happened. I think when the new owners came in, there were, this as well, if not better than I do, Steve, is that they were a little bit behind the 8 ball, if you like. It happened quicker in a time which probably wasn't as easy for them to come in and with some of the plans and everything else like that. So they've had to scramble a little bit. I think they've had to scramble around a little bit, certainly with some of the transfer window decisions and things like that. But I think the positive news and the way that they're connecting again with the fan base and the community is what Newcastle fans wanted. Newcastle fans have been starved of that connection with the ownership and with the people who run the club for a lot of years, which we all know about. And we don't need to go into in much detail. So it's just really nice to see them linking in with the foundation, linking in with the fan base, linking in with different parts of the community aside from the football club. It's a good solid 7, 8 out of 10 for me so far. There's been a few little missteps, I think, as there would be under any new ownership and any new era. Not going to get everything quite right, but on and off the field, I think Amanda Staveley and co have done a decent job so far, and it's just exciting to see where the next steps of the club and where they can possibly take it.
Obviously, the transfer window, was exciting because there's been so little activity in previous transfer windows in the last 14 years. So, I guess Eddie Howe, we'll look at him next. How do you think he has done on the pitch and off the pitch with his recruitment?
With his recruitment, I mean, I suppose that if we break it down into two bits, at the start, came in very, very positive. It was all good. I'll be the first to admit that I was a little bit disappointed in the intervening kind of weeks with some of the performances and some of the results. You could see what they were trying to do, but it wasn't clicking. The FA Cup exit was really disappointing. I thought there was a couple of missteps around. I thought around some of the team selection and tactics, but you could see that the plan and the process that was being put in place, and you really wanted that transfer window to come as quickly as possible, so Eddie Howe could get the players in that he wanted and he believed could fit into the style of play that he wanted. He's obviously been very instrumental in some of the transfers and the players that have brought in. Your Kieran Trippier, for example, which is, I said back in November, December, he would be the key signing. He would be a Barry Venison. He would be your Brian Kilcline, someone who's a winner, who's a leader, who can galvanise that dressing room. Since then, we can't fault Eddie Howe whatsoever. I think the tactics, the formation, the coaching, the style of play, the fitness levels have improved. The whole atmosphere around that kind of first team environment, I think, is massively encouraging. And you can see the positive steps that have been made. Yeah, there was a couple of 3 defeats in a row, but there was no need to panic. You could see what was being produced on the pitch and what was being produced on the training ground to take into games as well, which I don't think was necessarily the case beforehand. It didn't look like there was a coherent strategy or coaching structure or plan of play necessarily around the team. So that's all down to Eddie Howe. His recruitment's been good. Kieran Trippier has been a fantastic signing. Obviously, Dan Burns been a very solid signing. Bruno in midfield, Matt Target at left back. Even Chris Wood up front, who's had his critics. They've been really 5 solid signings, which have just taken the club onto a different level to where they were before. So yeah, full marks to him and the recruitment team for what they did during the January window.
I guess the other thing that we've got to look at with Eddie Howe is how he's turned around the fortunes of some of the players. And I mean, it won't have gone unnoticed to you as a journalist that, Joelinton, was getting a lot of stick on social media, getting a lot of stick in the ground, and people were scratching their heads as to why on earth Mike Ashley had sanctioned a deal for £40 million for a player that Rafa Benitez, it has to be said, wouldn't have spent 20 million on. But he's turned him around. Joelinton has become somewhat a cult hero now amongst the fan base, and nobody saw that coming.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's sometimes it's your sliding doors moments as well, Steve. You get these moments. Would Joelinton have been the success that he's been if it wasn't for Kieran Clark sending off? And he had to push back into that deeper role, or would Eddie Howe have noticed that eventually and put him into that deeper role, into that midfield? He's been reinvigorated. He's been reinvented as a kind of a destructive midfielder, if you like. It's astonishing the turnaround, and that a lot of that is down to Eddie Howe. I do think a lot of that is down to Joelinton as well. What he always did, even when he was getting stick, even when he was playing poorly, even when he was missing chances, he never hid. The lad never hid. He turned up for every game. His fitness and his appearance record was superb. His attitude was brilliant. He still wanted the ball. He didn't go hiding, even though he could have done it. It was quite easy. I was at the Wolves game away a couple of seasons ago, or maybe it was last season. I can't remember now, but it was the ones each draw. Almiron scored early on, and Wolves got back to 1-1. And I was in the away end for that game, or the away side, if you like, because it's down the side, isn't it, in Molineux. And the stick he was getting that game, and when he's right up against the touchline, the stick he was getting was incredible. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was a shame. But now he didn't hide. He didn't buckle under that. I think that's a measure of the fella himself, of the player himself. But yeah, Eddie Howe's got to take a lot of the plaudits for that. Not just with Joelinton, but with people like Joe Willock, with Fabian Schär. These players who look like they've got a new lease of life under Eddie Howe.
Yeah, it's a strange one, how a player can just go from, zero to hero. But, as I say, give credit to Eddie Howe and Jason Tyndall and the backroom staff for bringing that out. And there seems to be a camaraderie amongst the players as well. And, the team photograph has become something of a unique expression of unity on social media. It seems whenever there's a win, there's a team photograph, and the fans have picked up on it. And it's just the use of social media, isn't it, as a way of communicating with the supporters?
Yeah, definitely. That you mentioned the social stuff, Stephen, and you can see there's just a different atmosphere around the club. There's a different approach and a different kind of philosophy around the club. It's just a lot more positive. It's a lot more engaging with the fans, with the supporters, with the whole fan base. That comes from various different things. It comes from new leadership at the top. It comes from a new strategy and a new philosophy in the backroom team and the media team. It comes from players being positive in the coaching staff and that whole atmosphere around there. We're not hearing reports of training ground bust-ups anymore. We're not hearing reports of which we all heard. Some of it got reported, some of it didn't. There was plenty of stories that didn't get reported. And I'm not saying training ground bust-ups aren't happening, but they're not leaking out because there's a different vibe around the club now. People are a lot more, all buying into the same philosophy, if you like, all buying into the same team spirit. Whereas previously, obviously, there was a lot of unhappiness and a lot of different factions competing within the club. So yeah, it's all really, really positive at the minute. Which is great, and hopefully, Eddie Howe and the rest of the players and the coaching team can take that into the end of the season, keep the momentum going, and then we can look forward to a nice positive summer full of plenty of transfer rumours for us journalists.
Yeah, not just social media, of course, but just visual stuff like this. I mean, that was a wonderful photograph at the weekend of Mirdad Gudusi taking part in the War Flags display, which of course encapsulated the whole ground, Ross. It wasn't just the Gallagher as we've seen or the Gallagher and the Leazes. It was every single stand took part. And to see our owner, look, we're not stupid. Newcastle fans aren't stupid. We know if we're being sold a line. We know Mike Ashley going down to Blue Bamboo as he did and buying everybody a drink, or Sir John Hall popping into the Strawberry isn't the kind of thing they're going to do on a day-to-day basis. But I find their approach, Mirdad and Amanda's approach, and Jamie Rubin's, a lot more acceptable. And just look at him. He's got his shirt and tie on, his club tie, and they just look the part. They're what we hoped they would be so far for me. But that photograph will, I think, will again. It doesn't buy them time. I'm not. What I'm saying is it accentuates the positives which this takeover has done. Couldn't have got much worse. It could have football terms. We could have ended up where Sunderland are in the third tier. But from our perspective, the way we felt as a fan base. The fact that we'd lost 10,000 season ticket holders and more people were talking about jacking it in at the end of this season if Newcastle got relegated, had the previous regime stayed. That photograph for me just, it just shows there is this new era and we should just embrace it and enjoy it and perhaps stop grumbling about things that we are grumbling about at the moment.
Yeah, look, it goes back to that positivity, the kind of the positive PR, and PR can be a spin. You know, we've all been in this, you know, this industry, if you like, long enough to know that things can turn and can change very quickly. You know, I was a journalist when I was sports editor of the Shields Gazette when Mike Ashley took over the club from you know, the Shepherd and the Hall regime. And let's not rewrite history, because at that time that was seen as a really positive thing. You know, the fans were excited. Fans had become a bit disillusioned with Shepherd and Hall because of various different things. And you know, we would be rewriting history if we said that wasn't seen as a positive. You know, there wasn't a great deal of positivity around someone like Mike Ashley, a British billionaire, coming in and taking over the club. It didn't last. You know, it was built on sand, and for various reasons it didn't last. We all hope that under the new regime, the new ownership that the club has now, that it is something that's got more longevity than and more positivity than what happened under Mike Ashley. So I think you're right. We as football fans, you have enough bad times, you have enough disappointing times, and you know, the life was sucked out of the club under the Ashley ownership. Let's be honest about that. You talk about 10,000 season ticket holders disappearing. Even the ones who stayed, Steve, they were staying out of a matter of duty. They weren't staying out of any love or passion. Well, don't get us wrong. There was a love and a passion. I'll rephrase that. But there wasn't that love and passion wasn't coming out in the stadium on a Saturday afternoon. It was, you know, what the atmosphere. It was dead at times. It was really, really flat. So fans are entitled to be positive and to get behind the club and to enjoy the good times. And it's certainly a much more buoyant, positive, happy place to watch football at the minute.
Yeah, tell Ross agrees. He says the match has become enjoyable again. Happy faces in the crowd, great atmosphere, new owners who've embraced the club, and bit by bit are raising the Ashley memories. We've mentioned him a couple of times, and he hasn't been mentioned on the show a great deal, Ashley. But do you think, you know, when he looks back, do you think he'll regret not maybe embracing the club the way these new owners have? And, you know, we always said that had he continued in the same vein that he'd started, it could have been a different marriage, you know, and you know, we could have all been walking around wearing Sports Direct on our tops. I mean, you know, what better way of advertising your sports brand globally than having 52,000 Geordies walking around different parts of the globe with your brand on? But ultimately, the things that happened in the early part of his ownership, you know, soured the relationship, and it never recovered in that 14-year period.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. It could have been a very different story. It could, you know, again, it's them kind of sliding doors moments. You know, if it just made really, really bad decisions, really odd decisions from a you know, running the club point of view. You know, from little things. You know, just the people that he brought into the club. It was a lack of awareness, a lack of understanding, a lack of kind of knowledge around what was needed at the football club at the time, what's needed at football clubs in general. And once things went sour, he's obviously that type of bloke who is, it kind of thrives on a bit of conflict, thrives, you know, in his business world, and he's and he kind of, it just came across that he wanted to almost stick two fingers up at the fans at times, you know, and like, if you're going to criticize me, this is what I'm going to do back. And that relationship was never going to recover. You're right, it could have been a completely different story. But at the same time, given the type of owner and the type of businessman and the type of person that he was, it wasn't just the right fit. Newcastle United wasn't the right fit for him ultimately.
Yeah, I would agree. It's part of our history though now, so we don't have to worry too much about it. Tom asks a question. He says, who would you like to see us bringing in this summer?
Good question. I think forward players are needed. I know there's been issues with the defence previously, but I think what the last 3 or 4 games have shown to me is that there's just that lack of top quality in the final third. You know, you go to somewhere like Spurs and look, Harry Kane and Son are a different gravy. Let's be honest about it. You know, their partnership is quality. But for Newcastle to improve, I'd like to just see that bit of quality, bit extra class in that final third, that cutting edge. So maybe he's another wide player and another striker. I think someone who can, you know, who again, we go back to the kind of the Keegan era and what lifted that club is you're bringing in your Ginolas and your Spears and your Shearers and your Ferdinands, and yeah, you've got to spend the money to get them, but that bit of quality will just win games. You know, when it's a tight game, when you're up against a mid-table team or even a top-end team against your Chelsea. You know, we should have, you know, arguably beaten Chelsea at Stamford Bridge a few weeks ago, but again, played really, really well, but didn't create too many problems. Maybe he's could have had a penalty, of course, but didn't really create too many clear-cut chances. I just think I'd like to see that extra bit of quality in that final third, whether that's a big name signing and you're spending all your budget on one player like a Nunes or a Patrick Schick or somebody like that. I don't know if the club will do that, but I'd just love to see some extra quality in that top end.
Yeah, I think we'd all like to see another forward coming in. Fingers crossed that happens. When we did the dinner with Shearer the other night, he was asked the question, if you had £200 million to spend, who would you spend the money on? And he said, well, I'd spend 150 million on Harry Kane and 50 million on Botman. And I think he had one eye on his 260 record that night when he was talking about Harry Kane signing for Newcastle. But yeah, it will be an interesting summer. We'll do a quick shout out for our sponsors. As always, a big thank you to Spider Miner, the only cryptocurrency miner that can mine 5 different cryptocurrencies at the same time whilst using virtually no energy, and it's VPN protected. Buy yours now at www.miner.spidervpn.org. Thanks also to skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks also to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 01913897245, and a Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks also to Arcot Interiors for all your interior kitchens. Google Arcot Interiors, they come up at the top of the Google search list. They're based at the bottom of the Heaton Road. And thanks also to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle. And also the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. Thanks to Cleekai, meet the new game over screen, drop into a Clearrun device near you. Also available on Apple Store, Google Play and clearrun.game. Thanks to Jab Signature, jabsignature.co.uk, and to Media Arts for all their help on the video side of things. If you want to subscribe, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can subscribe for free. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up to like the videos, click share to share to your social media, and drop into the comments to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans or to pose a question on screen. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and all other podcast providers. Usually goes up 24 hours after the show has finished. If you want to become a member and support the channel, then you just need to go to nufcmatters.com and click membership, or you can run your phone over the QR code, which will take you straight to the membership registration part of the website. And what do you get for your money? Well, you get a scarf, you get a cup, you get a pen, a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. And if you are a subscriber to the channel, don't forget to go to nufcmatters.com and claim your free car sticker. We will post that out to you. You just need to give us a shout and let us know that you want one. We also support the food bank on this channel. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is where you will find the matchday bucket. It's a virtual bucket. You just need to go there and you can make a virtual donation today. And lots of people been doing that recently to help out. It's a desperate time for a lot of families, not just across the Northeast, but across the UK as well. Don't forget, we are running a raffle. A lot of people are interested in the Shearer ball from the dinner last week. You can enter the raffle. I think there's only about 20 tickets left on this. So online raffle, $5 a ticket, and it's limited to 99 tickets. And now at NUFCmatters.com to get a 260 ball signed by Alan Shearer. Limited edition, limited 1 to 260. Alan has signed them all. So get yourself onto the website to enter. And let's go back to the chat. Tell we've already read that one. L. Stapleton says, players have arguably stagnated and suffered because of the Bruce approach to management and coaching. I wonder how much better they would have been without those missing years. It's an interesting question, that, isn't it? I guess there's certain players we've already highlighted, Joelinton, Ross, but Shelvey, again, somebody who maybe fans agreed with me on this channel that they probably wouldn't have had him anywhere near the starting lineup. But since Eddie Howe's come in, he seems to have improved, and he's found a consistency level which was lacking under Bruce and maybe the previous manager.
Yeah, Shelvey's in it. Really interesting one. He's very much a Marmite type of player, I think, among the fan base. I probably agree with yourself, Steve. I've not been a Shelvey fan, if I'm being honest. I think there's too much of a Hollywood balls, had to, not really being fit enough. He's obviously a very talented player, but just not really got that maximised the ability that he's got. Having said that, I couldn't fault him for the last couple of months. I thought he was very good against Wolves. I think I thought his performance was very decent, but didn't probably get the publicity and the accolades that it deserved because Bruno was alongside him and he was even better. But I thought Shelvey's performance was excellent against Wolves. He's certainly a player that's got, like I say, he's got the talent. He showed it under Bruce at times. It was, if you remember back to when Bruce first came in, Shelvey had a bit of a renaissance in that, he obviously welcomed the Bruce's style of management, if you like, which was obviously completely different to Rafa's. I think he enjoyed that a little bit more freedom, but ultimately he kind of reverted back to some of the performances and the inconsistencies that he'd shown. That's the key now for Eddie Howe and Shelvey, is can he keep those consistent performances over a period of time, not just over 2 or 3 months. Can he put it together over a season and a half, over 2 seasons? Because there's ability there, and there's he's definitely an asset when he's at the top of his game, but it's just stringing it together over a period of time, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. ASM as well causes a split in the fans, and that really has been rumbling on for the last couple of weeks. In the media, on social media. Ross, where do you stand on the ASM debate? Would you build the team around him, as if you were the owners and Eddie Howe, or would you cash in if someone came in with an offer?
I would cash in. He's a huge talent. He's so exciting. He's so unpredictable. I just don't know how much better he's going to get. I don't know. Yeah, we players do improve under great coaching, and maybe he will. I don't know if he fits into the style of play and the philosophy that Eddie Howe wants. I think on his day he's fantastic. He is absolutely unplayable. And there'll be a lot of people out there who want to sign him. And Villa are certainly interested, and there's 1 or 2 other clubs that have sniffed around him. If you could get 40-50 million, I would cash in personally. I think he's a really exciting player, and I love watching talented players like him, like your Ginolas and your Ben Arthurs and players like that. But I think that in terms of end product and fitting into the style of play that Eddie Howe wants, I think there's possibly better options out there. I don't think everyone will agree with us, and it'll go back to we as a club keep our best players and not look to sell them and not look to cash in. it's going to be an interesting summer because my understanding is that there's a good pot of money there for transfers in the summer, but that there will be obviously players who have to leave, and there will be the budget will depend to an extent on what money can be brought in from players as well, from player sales. So if you can get a huge chunk of money for ASM, then for me, I would cash in 100%.
Yeah, it's definitely one that's going to rumble throughout the summer. Steve H has taken us onto a different plane altogether. He says football governance, the FA, the EPL and the EFL are all railing back on the Tracy Couch report. Is that bad for football going forward, Ross?
Oh, it's a big subject, this one, Steve. It's a big subject.
It is, and of course, this is the kind of subject which essentially, dictates, how Newcastle operate and how other teams operate, and there's still this air of suspicion amongst many in our fan base, me included, and I'm sure you as well as a journalist have an open view on these things, but. The whole takeover felt as if it was, we were heavily backed against having this takeover go through. We've got it through now. I think all eyes are now on Chelsea to see how quickly theirs goes through and who with. But it's, the governance thing has been rumbling on. We've had the Big Six, or the so-called Big Six, trying to leave and go off and play in their own competition. I mean, it's been a hell of a year for football. If you chuck in rule changes and stuff, VAR potentially bringing 5 subs on next season, it never stands still. Football. That's what makes it so intriguing. It
is. So we are actually it's gone so quick. We're a year on from the European Super League. It's a year next week, I think, since the European Super League. That issue came to a head. So 18th of April, I think it is. That was a kind of key moment in the game, or it should be a key moment in the game. So is the FA and the EPL and the EFL reeling back on the Tracy Couch report bad for football going forward? I think it is. I do feel as if we need an independent regulator. I do feel as if there needs to be some regulatory changes at the top end. I do think there needs to be more transparency and scrutiny on the Premier League and the FA, which at times just come to the FA and certainly at times just comes across as not being fit for purpose, if we're being brutally honest. I would love to see, and I'm still unsure as to how it would actually work out, but I'd love to see more fan involvement in the ownership around football. It's a game for the fans. There needs to be more. I'd love to see a fan representation on every board, for example, or part ownership of clubs somewhere down the line. I think we're a long way off that, but the model has been proven to work in other countries at other clubs. I do think there needs to be some real changes at the top end, and whether it happens or not is and whether the government's got the kind of the power and the influence and the ability or the desire or the will to push this through. I'm not quite sure as well. It's all right when the Super League news breaks and everybody's up in arms, but these things quickly subside away and get forgotten about. So I do think it is bad for football if we don't get some sort of independent regulator at the top end.
Yeah, I would agree. Steve says the change has been adopted by UEFA for 2024-25 season appear to be no more than their version of the European Super League. Again, is that bad for the game? Yeah, I would say it is, Steve. It really is. It's just by hook or by crook they'll do what they want and bugger the rest of us, I think, unfortunately, Steve.
Yeah, they'll definitely. It is. It's just a version 2 of what was being proposed with Super League, just in a different package, really. Yeah, it's what it's like at that top end. It's going to take a lot of nudging and pulling and swaying to try and get change going. But the rich want to look after the rich. They want to look after themselves. They want to make it a closed shop, both the Premier League and Super League, and to an extent you can see why. But yeah, hopefully we can, as a football nation, as a football group, as a football set of fans, we can help we can continue to shine the spotlight on some of the practices that are going on.
Tom Dixon says, Mikel Merino, would you have him back? I mean, links from other clubs supposedly going to spend big bucks on him. Of course, he came to Newcastle. He made an initial impact, but then drifted off and then was quick to hit the exit. But he seems to have developed into a fine young player and much sought after in the Spanish league.
Yeah, he was decent, wasn't he, when he was in you could see there was a player there. Now, I don't know if Man City are prepared allegedly at 50 million, then he's obviously developed into a player that we thought that he might. The glimpses that he showed when he was at St James's. I wouldn't personally have him back. I've not seen that much of him, but I wouldn't personally have him back. I think not this summer anyhow. I think Newcastle's need to strengthen, or their priorities need to be elsewhere. I think they need a centre half again. We've talked about the top end. Going to have to make a decision on the left back situation, whether it's Matt Targett made a permanent signing or the look elsewhere. Probably goalkeeper is going to be another area where there's going to be some movement in the summer as well. So I don't think midfield's a priority for Newcastle in the summer. I might be wrong, but with Bruno coming in, with Shelvey, as we've talked about, Joelinton's re-emergence, Joe Willock, Sean Longstaff, a couple of others in there that can play in there. I don't think it's going to be a priority in the summer.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Just question from me, really. Goalkeeper. I think it's a priority this summer. I think bringing a good goalkeeper to dovetail with Dubravka and to give him some competition is something we're going to need if we're going to start looking up rather than down. Would you agree your goalkeeper would be a signing in the summer?
For me, again, Steve, it goes back to the budget and the priorities. Let's just say for argument's sake, there's 100 million to sign. I'm not saying that is the number. I'm just plucking a number out. But it's then where are the priorities for the club in the summer? For me, it's two forward players and the centre half and a left back, and then a goalkeeper. For me, for me it would be fifth on the list. I think Dubravka's solid enough. He could probably get the club through another season or two. He's a safe pair of hands, if you like. So that would be my personal opinion. But I know that that's not necessarily the opinion that's shared within the corridors of power at Newcastle and within the coaching team at Newcastle. And there was a lot of stories done over January and February around the goalkeeper situation. And those stories, Eddie Howe knocked them. Let's be honest. Eddie Howe knocked him and said he wasn't looking to get rid of Dubravka and bring in another goalkeeper. He's going to say that. He's not going to say, oh yeah, I was looking to ship out my number one goalkeeper. When there's still half a season to play. But those stories had foundation. Newcastle did look at Dean Henderson at Man United. They did look at elsewhere, and they have looked elsewhere. So I think for the club, it seems like it's going to be a real priority, the goalkeeper situation.
Yeah, I would agree. L. Stapleton says, when does financial fair play actually get triggered? He says, I thought it was £105 million losses over 3 years. Yet Everton have hit over 300 million over 4 years and no issues. Yeah, but they blamed COVID, didn't they, Ross?
Yes. There's all sorts of little legal wranglings and everything else like that. Everton's going to be a real interesting one to keep an eye on. Newcastle will certainly be keeping an eye on it. I'll be brutally honest, financial fair play, I'm lost with it at the minute. It's one of those ones where the goalpost seems to shift all the time. Everybody's got an excuses with this, that, or the other. It's that complicated. But for Newcastle, it's something that they do really need to keep an eye on, because we all know that there is real spending power at the club now, but we all know that there is technically these restrictions on how much we can spend. So if one club's getting away with it in bending the rules, then what's to say that other clubs can't follow, Newcastle included?
Yeah, exactly. John Justice Allen says it's no coincidence that Man City and Liverpool have the best two keepers in the league and are challenging for the title. I like Dubravka, but he is a level below those two. So yeah, John agreeing with what I'm saying.
I agree with that. I completely agree with that, Steve. Dubravka is clearly a level below Alisson and Edison and De Gea even as well. You know, those kind of Mendy, those keepers. But Newcastle aren't going to be challenging for the title next year or 2 years' time as well. You know, so it's about your priorities. It's Dubravka will, you know, if Newcastle want to get into that top 4 or 5, they will need to find a new goalkeeper at some point. But it's just what the priorities are over the next 6 months, over the next 18 months, I think.
Scoring goals, 100%. I agree with you. You know, striker. If we have to sign players, it's got to be forward thinking players and another centre half. And I think there'll be a clear out as well. I mean, off the top of your head, you know, just thinking of names, you know, you would imagine Dwight Gale has to finally sever his ties with Newcastle United this year. You would imagine potentially one, if not both, Longstaffs, because neither of them are getting a look in, and regardless of whether the feature in Eddie Howe's plans, they're not going to be happy sitting on the bench, are they really? And then, you know, you're looking at the back four and thinking, well, Fernandez seems to be fit, doesn't seem to feature at all for whatever reason. I don't think we'll ever get to the bottom of that. Kieran Clark, I'm hearing rumours that Kieran Clark could already be, you know, away and, you know, have a new club sorted out. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Then you've got, you know, Fabian Schär and Paul Dummett. I mean, you know, all these players, you know, part of Newcastle United's plans moving forward. So, I mean, is any who you would particularly like to see the back off?
Not necessarily. I think you know those ones that you've named, absolutely. You know, the kind of the squad players who aren't necessarily going to take the club forward. Dummett's a really, really interesting one, I think, because when he's fit and he's you know 100% fit, then he's an asset to the team. He's a really solid left back. He's very underrated. But is he going to stay fit enough? Is he, you know, he's out of contract, I think, in the summer. So, you know, that'll be an interesting one to see what they do with him. Like Matt Ritchie and Jeff Hendrick and Isaac Hayden and those who and Jamal Lewis, who missed out on the 25-man squad. I think they, you know, the club could potentially be looking to shift some of them out. Obviously, the interesting one again, other than Saint-Maximin, for me, it'll be Miguel Almiron as well, because I just don't think he fits in. I don't think he's a player that Eddie Howe either trusts or thinks he can get the best out of. And you could potentially sell him for decent money as well. You know, you could potentially get, you know, 15, 20 million maybe if the right club comes in. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if he left, and it helped boost the kind of the January the summer transfer budget as well.
Tom's on fire this morning. He says, Ross, who do you think will be relegated this season? It's so tight at the bottom of the league. I think it's starting to shape up now, isn't it, Ross? I think Newcastle's cushion was cemented by Burnley's defeat at Norwich, and although Everton have managed to pull off the impossible and get a win against Manchester United after losing to Burnley, they've still got a mountain to climb. It looks as if it could be between Everton and Burnley, but it looks like Norwich and Watford are all but dead.
Yeah, I think so. We were at Everton, Steve, weren't we? And they I mean, Newcastle were poor that night. I thought Newcastle just ran out of steam and ran out of legs after a tough period on the road. But I couldn't believe how poor Everton were as well. I just thought they were really, really bang average. But they've got some real quality in there. If it clicks, your Calvert-Lewins and your Richarlisons, and Anthony Gordon's a good player, and they've got one or two elsewhere, which you think they might just have enough to stay up. But then you look at that running, and I know they beat Man United, but this is a woeful Man United team, by the way. This is a absolutely pathetic Man United team with no fight and no spirit. So anybody can turn them over on a day. Everton have got a really tough running. I was surprised by Burnley's result against Norwich and the performance. I actually watched the game, and they were really flat. So it's going to be tough between those two. You never write Burnley off, do you, Sean Dyche? No. He just manages to pull results and pull victories out of the bag. But I haven't said that. Look at Burnley's squad, and it's awful. It's absolutely awful. If they go down, they could be in serious bother because they need a big rebuilding project as well. If Everton go down there in serious bother because of the financial situation that's engulfing the club as well. So both will be desperate to stay up. If I had to choose one, I would say I think Everton will probably just pinch it.
Okay, Geordie Toombalay says using up to 5 subs next year definitely suits the bigger teams who have quality, as it keeps players happy who don't always get 90 minutes. Hopefully in a couple of years it will benefit us. Are you a fan of this new rule that's going to come in?
No, I'm not. I'm not at all. I don't see. We brought 5 subs in because of the COVID situation, and that's all finished. It for me, three's enough. This might sound daft, but why are we jumping from 3 to 5? Why don't we just jump from 3 to 4 if we need to increase it? So I'm not a massive fan of it. What absolutely gets right on my nerves as well is around the 5 subs is that the ones who are most vocal about it, your Peps and your Klopps and people like that, they don't use their subs anyhow. They pick the same team and they make one. Guardiola at City, he regularly plays games where he doesn't make a substitution, and he's crying on for 5. Well, use your 3 first and foremost before you start crying on for 5. So, not for me. I'd keep it at 3 personally. Or I saw a really, really good suggestion, a really, really good idea, which needs a little bit of work on. But if you're going to use 5, if you're going to increase it to 5, make the final 2. They've got to be academy graduates, or they've got to be youth team players, or something like that. Now, it's an imperfect solution. It would need a little bit of work on it, but something like that where it we're not just using those extra 2 substitutions just for running the clock down, or for giving experienced players 5 minutes at the end so they pick up that win bonus or whatever.
The dreaded words VAR. That is something which has been a game changer, and it hasn't massively benefited Newcastle. It has in certain games. It has to say they say these things level themselves up throughout the season. It doesn't really feel like that with VAR, and it seems, Ross, I don't know whether it's just our ground. It just seems incredibly slow at Newcastle. I know it's incredibly slow elsewhere, but it just seems even more slow at Newcastle. It just seems to be a delay. And often when decisions are made, for example, Chris Wood's goal, which was rightly disallowed at the weekend, the fans were picking it up on their phones before we were told what it was at the ground. Again, VAR, should it really have had a bit more, practice, or, before they launched it full scale?
I suppose so. I think you're right. I think it should have had more practice. It needs tweaked. It's like everything. Anything that you bring in, any new system that you bring in, you're never going to get it 100% right at the start. My issues with VAR, there's 2 or 3, I suppose. Only 2 or 3. There's probably more actually when I think about it. But there's, I think one issue I've got with it is exactly what you're saying, is keeping fans in the dark and the length of time that it takes to make those decisions. The second one is that for me, it's taken the benefit of the doubt away from forwards, and we're, if something is that borderline and it's taken 4 minutes to check, just give it a go. If it's that borderline, it's supposed to be for clear and obvious stuff. Now, if we're talking about a millimeter of somebody's armpit or somebody's heel, then what is the point of it? We all want to see goals. The other thing for me is it's taken away some of the atmosphere inside the stadium when we score a goal. When we see goals scored, some players are kind of a bit reluctant to celebrate. Fans are a little bit reluctant to celebrate because they're thinking, well, this is going to get overruled for VAR. So Sadio Mane scored against, I think it was in midweek against Benfica in the Champions League, and he just didn't celebrate because he knew it might get ruled out for VAR. Unless there's a goal in a big Champions League quarter final, you can't celebrate. So fans are the same. So it just takes away a little bit of the passion and the kind of the spontaneity around football, which is something that we all love.
Yeah, that's certainly affected it, and it's not great at all. Now it's going to be 5 subs, is it not? It's time to make them rolling subs so it doesn't waste time, says John.
We're getting into the Sunday morning realms here, man. Rolling subs, on and off.
One-armed linesman. Yeah, a home linesman who just has one arm and just puts it that way all the time.
Exactly.
All right, Geordie Toombalay says, do you think managers or captains should be allowed a challenge against VAR decisions, maybe 1 per half?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's a bit like your cricket, isn't it, where you get your you're able to challenge a decision and put a review in or whatever. I don't know. I'm not too sure. I'd have to have a bit of a think of that. We just want VAR to be quick and accurate and kind of transparent, I think. And it's certainly improved, but I think the problem with VAR is not necessarily the system. It's the people who are monitoring it. It's it's still human error. It's still, some of them you look and you go, well, why is that not a penalty? Newcastle at Chelsea. And you look, well, VAR had a look at that. That's not VAR's fault that they didn't give that a penalty. They give it as it's the person who's implementing it. It's the referee who's looking at it. So that's not necessarily going to change. You need better people you need better refs, you need better officials to implement the VAR, not necessarily the system itself.
Yeah, I would agree as well. It's sometimes not the technology, it's the humans who let it down. John says, surely the ref should look at the screen every time VAR makes any decision to keep it fair. Like, again, I mean, that would just be so time consuming. We'll be entering into the American football, the lengths of games, and, be there for 3 hours, which it's bad enough. I've seen some dads struggling to keep their kids interested for 90 minutes. So imagine them being there for 3 hours. Who would you make captain for next season, says Peter Robson? I think this is a fairly easy answer. I think most Newcastle fans would agree, but you might have segued into a different angle. I'm not sure, Ross. I would go Trippier.
Yeah, Kieran Trippier. Next question. Easy that one. No, yeah, he's just a leader. He's just a born leader. He's superb. The only worry I have with Trippier is, well, not worry, but slight disappointment with him is that his age. He's 31, 32 now. You would love to have had him 2 years ago. So how many seasons can the club get out of him? I hope it's always plenty, because he's brilliant.
Yeah, I would agree. Great to hear different views, says Tell. Thanks. Geordie Tumbalai says, do you think it's fair that Mike Dean referees Liverpool and Everton games, even though he lives on the Wirral? Personally, I don't think this should be allowed. He is a Tranmere fan, so I'm not sure he's got a beef with either of those two teams. But I get your point. I mean, when my granddad, we started with my granddad, we're finishing with my granddad. My granddad was a referee assessor. He couldn't assess games at Sunderland because he lived in Bolton. So Bolton, of course, is just a stone's throw from Sunderland. And I get your point. Maybe the ruling has changed. And
Newcastle have arguably been harshly done by because for me, probably the two best referees in the Premier League over the last 10 to 15 years are both Newcastle fans. It's Mark Clattenburg and Michael Oliver. I know there's other good referees, don't get us wrong, but Newcastle have never been able to be refereed by Clattenburg or Oliver, who are the two standouts for me.
Yeah, I would agree. Oliver's superb, great referee, great bloke as well. Refs need to be accountable, need to be interviewed within 30 minutes of the game ending to give their reasons for big decisions. No accountability will always lead to problems. I think I would agree. I'd like to hear from referees, but you're opening up all kinds of wounds then, and maybe an hour after the game they've had a chance to watch it back after having a shower or whatever. I think that would be good. We've reached the end of the show. Let's get a quick prediction then from you, Ross, for the game at the weekend. How do you see that going?
I think the pressure's off Newcastle a little bit after the Wolves win. Hope and go and just be a bit carefree and open and relaxed around it. I love Leicester. I'm a big Brendan Rodgers fan. I know he splits opinion, and he's not for everybody, but I'm a big Brendan Rodgers fan. I like what he does. I like the way he sets his teams up. I like the style of play. So it'll be a tough one, but I've got a feeling that Leicester got I think they've got the Europa League game on Thursday. So I'm going to go for a comfortable 2-0 victory for Newcastle.
Fantastic. John says he'd like to make Van Dijk captain next season. He says, can he let him know he needs to change clubs?
Not De Bruyne, just Van Dijk, not De Bruyne or anyone else.
We'll keep De Bruyne for the winter window. Jody Tumbalay says Leicester in Europe and need a win, so that won't help them. So a 2-1 win. And Tom says, I think we will beat Leicester on Sunday with them playing on Thursday evening. I'm going for a 2-1 win as well. Ross, your hour's up, and that flew over, mate. Absolute pleasure to have you on. No live shows next week, because I know you Easter holidays, you've got to spend time with the family, but I'm doing the same. in next week, so a lot of pre-recorded shows. But we will welcome you back with open arms if you're up for it in a couple of weeks' time, mate.
Absolutely, Steve. Thanks very much for having us on, and appreciate all the questions coming in as well. Been great.
Great stuff, mate. Take care. Have a good day, pal.
All right. Cheers, mate. Thanks now.